النووية لتوليد الكهرباء.
Egypt unveils its nuclear ambitions, but this Middle Eastern country does so with US blessing and cooperation. Why is it different from Iran, and how will it affect Egypt's role in the Middle East? This is Inside Story. Hello. Citing energy security as an important factor in Egypt's development, President Hosni Mubarak announced that Egypt is to build a number of nuclear power stations. The United States said it would offer its cooperation in the project. US officials insisted there was no comparison between peaceful use of nuclear technology by Egypt and Iran's controversial nuclear program. Hugo McPherson has more on the story.
The Egyptian horizon, almost unchanged in 4,000 years. But Egypt's horizons may have changed this week. The President, Hosni Mubarak, announced a national nuclear project.
I declare before you Egypt's decision to start a nuclear program, building several plants to generate electricity.
It comes almost 50 years since Egypt's nuclear ambitions were first unveiled. But Monday's announcement follows a similar statement by Jamal Mubarak, the president's son, who's tipped to take over the presidency shortly. It was criticised then as a cynical publicity stunt, a fanfare to introduce Jamal as the new Egyptian leader, while his father was still in control.
Mubarak's decision, which I support, should be accompanied by a call to regain legitimacy, which his administration has lost. This should be in the context of reviewing Egypt's role in what is known by the US as the moderate nations combating Iran.
The US has intensified pressure on Iran for its nuclear ambitions, approving a new course of sanctions last week. But Washington has already announced its support for the Egyptian program. Egypt's project does not involve in-house enrichment. Rather, it aims to import uranium, making it totally dependent on foreign assistance and international conditions.
Will Egypt be enriching uranium, or will it be importing it ready-made? There could very well be political warnings preventing enrichment within Egypt.
That said, with Egypt falling under the US list of moderate nations, the US hopes Egypt can become a shining example of the right way to pursue nuclear development. With Egyptians facing a deepening energy crisis, it is not surprising that most Egyptians seem to be in favour of a nuclear program. But after a 50-year wait, it is not clear yet whether the government will deliver.
Well, joining us to discuss the Egyptian nuclear plans are our guests. In Cairo, Mohammed Nasser Al-Sayed, a nuclear energy expert and a professor of nuclear safety. In Washington, D.C., Joshua Muravchik, a resident scholar of the American Enterprise Institute. And also in Washington, D.C., Munthir Suleiman, a national security affairs analyst and the Washington bureau chief for Al-Mustaqbal Al-Arabi journal. Welcome to you, gentlemen. If I could go first to Cairo. Dr. Al-Sayed, why the decision to go ahead with the nuclear power now?
Good evening. When we look to the nuclear decisions, the nuclear decision in Egypt date to the 50s. It is not starting now. Our nuclear program was starting in the 50s. But if you look to the necessity of nuclear energy, we have to look at it in three levels. One level is the international level. This international level, we have a danger which is threatening all the human being, which is the global warming and the harmful gas emission like CO2, sulfur oxide, nitrogen oxide, and all such things. Now, even if you have enough petroleum for millions of years, it is necessary to stop burning all this fossil energy source because it is a dangerous situation for the humanity.
OK. If I can just stop you there briefly, Munthir Suleiman, apart from the idea of climate change being one of the issues, is there a political side to this decision to restart a nuclear power programme?
Absolutely. The environment after the Iranian nuclear program, and this nuclear program in the Middle East has been looking in the context of national pride, national ambition, kind of domestic scientific development. And most of the country in the region, they would like, especially Egypt, considered as an important regional power versus, let's say, Iran, Turkey, traditionally as kind of in a competition. And they see that Iran is kind of advancing in this field. So there is a renewal interest in this. But personally, I believe that the right course should be of alternative source of energy, and we should concentrate on creating a nuclear-free zone in the Middle East that would lead not to have even a nuclear weapon to begin with, or weapon of mass destruction. So I think it's a combination of prestige. There is a need for energy, but at the same time, after a Chernobyl accident and after the cost of such an enormous program, there is now a renewal to try to advance, and we could see Turkey, we see other countries, we see the GCC country are also looking into the same thing, while they were critical, and they're still critical of the Iranian program, and especially with the environmental impact. I think the environmental impact is a serious one, and we should look for alternative like wind and solar energy, and I think the Middle East is a primer place to investigate into this and to spend more money in it, because eventually any kind of disaster, nuclear waste and other or any kind of accident could jeopardize the livelihood of the entire Middle East.
Joshua Muravchik, what do you make of it, that idea that actually they should not be looking at nuclear at this point, they should be looking at other alternatives?
Well, I don't know if it's my place to advise the Egyptians what kind of fuel or power projects they ought to have, but generally, the environmentalists have been talking for decades about solar power and wind power, and just it hasn't produced much energy. Nuclear power can produce energy. Nuclear power it can be a very, very clean and efficient way of generating a great deal of energy, and a positive alternative to burning fossil fuels. But I do take the point that with nuclear power, one fears catastrophic accidents like Chernobyl, as Mr. Suleiman mentioned. And of course, in Egypt, they do have a record of some poor management of public facilities. We've had some events like the terrible sinking of the ferry, an Egyptian registered ferry in which hundreds lost their lives, and we've had train accidents, and there is that kind of history of inefficient or haphazard management, and one would want to feel that any kind of nuclear facility is going to be managed at a very, very high level of efficiency, and perhaps with international assistance that can be assured. Okay,
let's just take a reminder of some of the facts and figures. Egypt's population of almost 80 million is the largest in the Arab world. The country's energy sector is struggling to keep up. As Egypt's population grows, energy consumption increases in the country by 7% every year. Now, Egypt consumes almost all of its own oil and gas, despite increased production. For the moment, demand for energy consistently outstrips supply. And energy analysts say stocks in Egypt are running out fast. They say reserves won't last another 20 years, despite recent strong denials from the Egyptian government. Dr. Nasser Al-Sayed, if I can come back to you. At the moment, Egypt is actually exporting its gas at below market rates to Israel, and will do so for several years. Is that a bit strange to be exporting some power and then looking to invest in nuclear in the future and having to borrow money for that?
But if you look to the nuclear energy now, if we decide now to build a nuclear power plant, we have to wait between 8 to 10 years to have this nuclear power plant. What will be for our reserve of gas and petroleum? This is the first question. The second question which we have to consider is the stability of prices. You know, if you look to the price of a kilowatt hour, the price of a kilowatt hour can be influenced by the gas price up to 70%. If for instance, we double the price of gas, the kilowatt hour will be increased by 70%. But in the nuclear case, if you double the price of uranium, the kilowatt hour will be increased only by 7%. What does this mean? This means the stability. We are facing a problem of instability of world price for fossil fuel, for which we are not controlling. These prices are decided outside our region.
Okay,
so
let me just,
we want something
to
be stable.
Sure. Okay, we're going to take a very short break now, but when we come back we'll be looking at the wider regional and international implications of the Egyptian announcement, so do stay with us.